good.
Hi, everybody. This is Christy O'Connor from Art Hustle. I am continuing the series and conversation with Kenechi Unachukwu on gun violence and American gun culture for our current exhibition that's up at Shishama Madison, Thoughts and Prayers, Another Round of Vacant Stares. This exhibition highlights artwork that examines the impact of guns that have within our nation as a symbol of power and freedom, or as an instrument to incite fear and cause harm. We have over 29 exhibiting artists in this exhibition, including visual contributions from the nonprofit organization Gays Against Guns. And so I'd like to introduce you to Kenechi. He is a freelance photographer currently based out of Madison, Wisconsin. He was first drawn to photography by images documenting the underground b-boy breakdance battle scene. He began taking photos in that realm in 2017 and has since branched out to street photography, landscapes, and portraits. As he develops his style, Kenechi aims to both tell stories that have not been told, as well as offer a fresh perspective on things we see daily. I'd like to welcome you to our conversation today. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So you are featured in our virtual exhibition on arthustle.net, and your work is black and white photography, and from what I understand, it's analog film, correct?
Some of it is film, some of it's digital. I usually carry around both right now. I recently switched to a mirrorless camera, so it's like a little easier to carry around than like my big Nikon DSLR that I used to have. So I can kind of switch between both of them.
That's exciting. With the film photography, do you have access to a dark room to do your own printing?
No, that's like the next step right now. I'm kind of in a smaller apartment right now, so it's like my options would be like have my closet with all my clothes, or like my bathroom or something. So maybe if I moved somewhere bigger, that would be like,
Oh, so that's totally understandable. You don't want to be sleeping where the smell of the chemicals are.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have two pieces in our exhibitions right now. You have a piece titled Patriotism and Paranoia and Don't Tread on Me. And before we look at those pieces, I just want to, I guess, have a conversation about where you were at the time that you photographed those works.
Yeah, so
important.
Yeah, so it was April of this year, I believe. So right around the first month of quarantine, and it was around the time where I think people were getting, I guess, a little bit restless with it. So there was a protest. So I'm based out of Madison, Wisconsin, which is the capital, which is, I guess, fortunate because things seem to happen here quite a bit. So people from all over Wisconsin came to protest at the Capitol against the stay-at-home order. And, it was largely more conservative, right-wing people. And a lot of the focus was on, oh, hey, the curve is flat already, like let businesses open back up. A lot of small businesses, rural workers, farmers, things like that, kind of voicing their concern about not being able to work and things like that. So that was kind of the background, and it was quite a big scene. So, I figured, something's gonna happen. So I feel like I kind of need to be there and see what's up with it. So that was the background.
So when you were there in the midst of the protest, did you have conversations with any of the people, or were you just kind of there observing in the background?
Yeah, so primarily it was more of an observatory role. I did have some conversations with people, and again, I think like the concern was, just based off the information that they had or thought they had, that, it would be safe to reopen. And again, of course, like trying to just, a lot of people's livelihoods were at stake.
Yeah.
Especially towards the beginning where like nothing was really open. So that's really what the concern was.
And what was the general reaction to people seeing you photographing them?
I think it's definitely split. So I have one memory in my mind where I was like walking down the steps of the Capitol. I had like one camera around my neck and then one in my hands, one film, one digital. And I think I had like brought it like slightly close to my eye, and this like woman was like, please don't take a photograph of me. And I was like, okay, I wasn't going to take a photograph of you anyways. But other times it was, you know, a lot of people would like actually like stop and pose for me. You know, they were kind of like, you know, proud to see what, to like, you know, just show what they were doing. A lot of people, I remember like there were this group of 4 people in like the anonymous mask, like the Guy Fawkes masks, and I was like, took a picture of one, and then like, oh, this guy's taking a picture, let me get all 4, like the rest of you guys, like, and let's pose. And you know, honestly, even a lot of people are open to saying like, or to me asking like, hey, can I take a picture of you? And they're like, yes. So
that's actually really interesting that was the experience. I say that as an observer who's never really photographed a protest before. So the imagery that I had seen from those protests just seemed so intimidating in a way. I wouldn't expect that kind of willingness to be photographed and documented that way, just by I guess from seeing on the other side of the screen the intimidating nature of, I guess, their outfits. Maybe it is.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, and maybe this kind of goes into the conversation about like, you know, what we think about guns. Like, you know, like some people who may not have, and I didn't grow up around guns, so like, you know, when I saw that, I was like, oh, it's going down. But like for other people, you know, who've grown up around guns, it's a normal thing. So for them, it's like, you know, I think like, you know, it's a right, it's a Second Amendment right. Like, you know, there's nothing that, especially in an open carry state like Wisconsin, there's nothing that should be like scary or criminalized about just holding or having a gun. So like to them, they're like not doing anything like out of the normal. Like it was just a regular Friday afternoon.
Yeah, and you know, that's another really interesting take on it, because again, I never grown up around guns either. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen a gun in real life. So I think I'd be terrified if I saw one in real life. I mean, besides seeing police officers on the street with guns on their belts, which I find also intimidating and scary too. So I think that is a worthwhile conversation to have as well. Just, you know, knowing about different people's experience of exposure with guns.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would like to share your work. So I'm going to do a screen share.
All right.
And can you see that okay?
Yep.
So tell us about this piece right here.
So if I remember correctly, so I think, first of all, this is like one of my favorite, if not my favorite picture from this entire protest. And I think it kind of sums it up pretty well with, you know, you have so like, first of all, like, you know, the depth of field, like you can still see like the background, and you have the sign there. So we don't need your permission to exercise our rights, open Wisconsin now, the American flag. And then the person who's like not looking directly into the camera and is of course like, you know, in paramilitary gear with like the bulletproof vest, the gun, the gas mask, the camouflage. So it kind of sums up exactly what's going on kind of for the day. So if I recall correctly, this was closer to the beginning of the protest. And yeah, I don't know, I just caught this, like, because again, like I think for me, like going here was like, it's something I wasn't familiar with. And here is this person who I think was also particularly like a young person, like, probably like a late teenager, maybe.
Yeah, and you can tell that they're young I guess the way that like the haircut, like you can see it through the eyes of the gas mask, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also really like that aspect of it too, that you can see like a little bit of like the eyes through the gas mask, and it makes it kind of like yes, this person is a human, but like, is it somebody like I can really relate to, because like I can't see their eyes very directly or like very faintly.
And is this one of the people who posed for you, or was this a quick snapshot that you took?
This one was a quick snapshot, but I did get one of this person with another person standing next to them after that on film camera. And that one was more of a posed one, but didn't have the same kind of snap to it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and did you wind up having a conversation with this person?
No, not this person. This was kind of one where I like, did my thing and then like, walked away.
Gotcha.
But I feel like, there's, I don't know, like, how do I say, like, like maybe not too much conversation to be had. I feel like, just like the overall atmosphere was very clear about, what exactly was going on. And I don't say that to be like, ignorant or anything like that. Like, I don't need to have a conversation to know what's going on, because I think that kind of like rhetoric is a little bit dangerous. But it was very clear what the intentions and like, just kind of the, I guess, vibe was of the entire event.
Yeah. And then, so this one was Patriotism and Paranoia, and this is Don't Tread on Me. Can you tell us about this one?
Yeah, so this one was also not another posed portrait. I got the title. I was trying to think of a title for this, and I was like, what do I call it? And then I realized right in the middle of this guy's chest, it's the snake flag with the Don't Tread on Me symbolism that was an early U.S. flag. So that's what I titled it. This one was film. And yeah, I think I also really like this one just because I caught this person like right as they were noticing me there. So that's why you kind of see that side eye there.
Yeah.
They were also, again, like, decked out in the military gear, the camouflage, the automatic weapon, things like that. And you can see again in the background a person like, with similar like, gear and things like that. And they were all together in a group, kind of, just chopping it up.
Yeah. So now, I would like to ask you, when you were there at the protest, what kind of emotions were you going through? Were you scared? Was it intimidating, or did you just feel like you were documenting like an important moment in time?
Yeah, so I think, a little bit of all of that. So definitely like I said, like I didn't really grow up around guns or anything like that. So, and even though Wisconsin is an open carry state, like I don't think I'd ever seen anybody, again, like except police officers, with, guns actually out, especially guns like, big guns like rifles and things like that. So I think, it was like a little scary, but then like, I just kind of got into the mentality that like, these people are like, exercising their right. Like, there wasn't any planned like, storming of like the Capitol. I mean, as far as I knew or anything like that. So I think that kind of like helped me mellow out a little bit. And then I guess like, from my mentality again, like I figured like, one thing I try to always do is like with photography, especially, is like, chase like those moments, like those definitive moments. And I think, just not even just this, but like, with all the events that have been going around in Madison, I think it's important to like, I feel like document, because like, I feel like, 2020 is definitely a year for the books.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And there's probably going to be some stuff that happened in the U.S. and across the world that's going to be taught in history books, whether like soon or maybe like 30, 50 years down the line. So
Hmm.
that's kind of like what I feel like I'm doing here, like documenting like a little snippet of history of like I guess some town in the
Yeah.
Midwest.
And I have to say, I mean, that it takes a lot of courage to go document something, especially like that. I think I'm in New Jersey, and we were watching it on the news, and the way they were describing it on the news was just these people, and I don't I don't know if what the news reporting was, probably biased. But they made it seem like these people were unhinged and a little, and again, they just look intimidating. And
Right.
so, I mean, I'm sure it's important to get their perspectives too, because I'm painting a picture in my head of these people as someone who is out there looking to intimidate and hurt the general population, but that picture in my head could be completely wrong
Right.
from who these people really are.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's true. Again, like it's kind of really all about perspectives. And I think that's part of the reason I titled that first piece, Patriotism and Paranoia. I wrote like a little like essay about it, or I don't know if it's an essay, it was like a paragraph or two. But it said something like, you have these people who believe like that they are doing um, like their civic duty to like go protest an unjustness,
Mm-hmm.
protest, something that they didn't believe to be real. Because like also at that protest, like you saw signs that said COVID-19 isn't real, like the classic like 5G thing,
Mm.
things like our there was one of somebody with an anonymous mask saying like plandemic,
Oh no.
things like that. So, definitely, but you also had people on the spectrum who like, believes that, the virus was real, but just not as bad as it was. So like, that's kind of, and again, like it was their duty to like be patriotic and, protest against an injustice by the state, local, or like federal government.
Yeah.
And the paranoia aspect of it comes in where we're saying like, again, like where did this virus come from? Where did this like, why are they telling us to stay home? Like, when, herd immunity might be the best thing for us, as shown, things like that. And I think I left off that essay saying like, it really corresponded with a fear that was probably the most justifiable one, that things would never be the same again.
Yeah.
So, I think that that's kind of where, again, it's really just all about, perspectives and how like getting into how people think a little bit.
Yeah, and again, it all rolls. I mean, even though we're just looking at like one aspect of gun culture, on a larger scale, it just all is really about this divisive nature we have right now all over the country, and really any topic we want to talk about. I feel like, I mean, it's like we don't have conversations with each other anymore. I feel as though like for me personally, I find it very difficult to try to open up and talk with people on the quote unquote other side, because it just feels like an argument and no one's listening.
Right. Yeah, I think that, you know, I think like what you just described to me is like empathy, right?
Yeah.
And that is an aspect that I feel like a lot of people are lacking, whether like just interpersonally or through their art. You know what I mean? So I think that's something I try to portray, especially like when I'm taking pictures, and especially when I'm writing descriptions of pictures as well, because again, one thing I wrote in that photo essay was like, you start to begin to understand, like, if everything you had worked for was taken away, in an instant. Like, you know, if you're a shop owner, there was a person who was speaking on the microphone there who was like, hey, I'm like, you know, I own a tattoo business. Like, you know, this is like what I put my life's work into. And now, like, you know, all of a sudden they're telling me that I can't, you know, I can't do anything with that. Like, I don't have any other jobs. Like, you know, this is what I do for a living. And, you know, for all that to, and for something that is perceived as not actually as bad as it is, or not actually existing, you know, that would be frustrating to you, you know? So it's, I think it's like important to like, at least, even if you don't agree, to like see where people are coming from and like understand. And maybe it's valid, maybe it's coming out of ignorance, but at least understanding like why people are feeling what they're feeling, or attempting to do that, is important, and can lead to better conversations all around.
I agree with you 100%. And the photo essays that you're working on, along with the accompanying images, they sound really extraordinary. Are you planning on creating a book with this series, or?
Yeah, so my recent work has been, you know, in addition to like some personal work and things like that, has been documenting the various protest movements around Madison. So this Patriotism and Paranoia one, that was the very first one that I had ever done. And then, you know, a month later, you know, the murder of George Floyd, and which sparked protests around, you know, the world. And of course, you know, Madison's about 4 hours away from Minneapolis, so stuff happened here. So I documented the riots that same night. And then, you know, I guess like the important thing to note, and I think the thing that people don't know is, or the general public doesn't know, is that, especially here in Madison, is that things were happening, other protests were happening like almost daily. And maybe not to the scale of, you know, riots or anything like that, but like, you know, people like, you know, standing outside the Capitol, like saying demands, and even like there was this group out here called Black Umbrella, and they did something that they called it like 7 Shades of Black, which is like 7 days of protest with different themes. And part of that was about like community building and like culture and things like that. So their very first day was a blackout, where like, you know, you dress in all black, kind of like represent like, you know, what has happened. The second day was about professionalism, where they had like resume reviews and taught about like, you know, real estate and things like that. So more things like, so those type of things are happening every day, and it's not like your standard definition of a protest. So my goal is to, you know, be out there as much as possible, not only as like, you know, a documentarian, but also as a participant to the things that I feel like are like, that I value and are important to me, which is sometimes tough because, you know, I work, and, you know, sometimes protests are during the 9 to 5 hours. Sometimes, you know, you don't necessarily feel like going out after the fact. But, you know, I try to make it out when I can. And again, just put together a body of work and show that, you know, it doesn't have to be a Portland or a New York City that have like, or like, you know, some London or something like that, that has huge demonstrations. Like, things are happening almost daily in a city local to you. So that's the plan eventually.
I really like that. Just, you know, creating something to like generally inform the people that it doesn't have to be a big city that things are happening in to you know, mean it's important, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I was actually, you answered my question partially, but I wanted to see if you could go into it a little further about how important it is, do you find it, to separate yourself between participant versus documentarian?
Yeah. And I do think it is important, because, so, and that's kind of like the reason I use the cameras that I do. Like, first of all, I have way too many cameras. So if you need some, if somebody needs some film cameras, let them know. So like, it's like, for me, it's like a 50 millimeter lens. So like not super, it's not like, I'm not dealing with like, a 70 to 300 or something like that, where I can like almost separate myself from the view of like people. And I think especially at like, so I saw people like that at both initial protests that I went to, this one and also the George Floyd protest. And I think it's important, like kind of like you said, like to talk to people and, actually be up close. And if it's like something that you support, actually be a part of what is going on. Because if I'm like, standing far back, like I have to separate myself, like, try to get ahead or get behind, and I'm not really in it. And that's not really where I want to be. And I feel, again, going back to empathy, getting close, getting personal with people, that's how I find I make best work and kind of like the most poignant work. Just being there, being a part of it, and getting close.
Yeah. So, I was looking at your bio, and you spoke about how you started initially around 2017 working in break dance and bebop scene, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
And could you talk about how different it is documenting that versus what you're documenting now?
Yeah, I think it's different in a couple ways. So first of all, like I guess like breaking photography is more about, for me at least, when I was like very heavily doing it. I still do like at times. Well, we could talk about that. I got different stuff, but for like when I was photographing events and dancers, like it would be kind of about sitting down in a spot, finding the best spot, and kind of like just like perching there and like, taking pictures at like, one angle, and like maybe like when like there was a break, you go find like another spot, like try to like when they call everybody back to the circle, like, rush back and try to sit down at that same spot and like, just get the best shots you could, which is fine. But first of all, I think, one thing I found out is that I enjoy like, participating at the events like more, like, so I also dance. So that's kind of how I got into the scene, and I knew other dance photographers who kind of like inspired me. But like I just have more fun at a jam or competition, like when I'm actually doing it. So I kind of like, put the camera away for that. And then also it differs because, again, based on that, aspect of finding one spot and, just trying to capture the best shots you can from that spot versus actually moving around, trying to find the best subject, trying to find the best like composition, things like that, all of those things, and actually like being mobile and being able to, I don't know, having a bit more freedom and flexibility, and especially like, I don't know, just I think that's it. The mobility is like very different.
And well, it sounds like when you're documenting the dancing, it's more structured in a way too.
Yeah, I would definitely say that.
Yeah, and less room for maybe spontaneous moments.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. Like, yeah, I agree with that 100%. And not to say that you can't capture spontaneous movements and moments, but again, because like you don't necessarily have that same move or ability to move around, it's could happen less. And I think also like what has influenced me is also shooting film, because you don't have to have a prime lens to like shoot film, but a lot of like the good lenses are prime lenses, so you're not zooming, which I did have with my digital camera, or my first digital camera that I was using to shoot breaking. So like the mentality is a little different. Like when you want to move closer, like now with what I shoot, I have to actually move closer, or if I want to like zoom out, I have to zoom out. It's not like on the ring anymore. Like, so I think it's just how I prefer to shoot now. Maybe I like matured a little bit as a photographer. Not that anything's wrong with but it's just I think how I prefer to shoot and how like I kind of like trained my mind over the last year.
Mm. Well, so yeah, so I want to talk more about patriotism and paranoia. So this is going to be developed into a book, you believe, correct?
I hope so.
You hope so. Do you have a working title by any chance?
It's gonna have something to. It's one of the phrases in it is going to be a mad city or mad town or something like that. 'Cause that's what people call Madison, mad city, mad town, stuff like that.
I didn't know that either. I find I'm learning so much during these artist interviews. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us about the work, the pieces you're working on now currently, or projects?
Yeah, I think, and I kind of like referenced this a little bit earlier, but again, first of all, just again, documenting events, protests, I guess, unrest in Madison, but not necessarily just unrest, like things like, community building, things like that, that have, again, come as a result of 2020 being the way it is. That's the end goal. And then, oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and as a documentarian, do you have a specific goal in mind or hope when people see your body of work completed?
I think, kind of like I said earlier, just to recognize that, hey, like, it's not just these big cities that have things going on. And then I think as long as people have like an emotional connection to not even the whole body of work, just to something in it, I think, that's I think that's my goal. Whether it's like, you really connected with something, like you loved it, or I don't know, even if you hated it and you want to burn it or something like that. I think, that's kind of the goal, to evoke something in somebody.
Yeah, I think that's always, always someone's goal in the arts, correct? For sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, so I want to real quick just share your website so people know where to find you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to share the screen and let's see. So this is your website here. It is, and how would you spell it out or say it out loud?
Yeah, I'll say it out. It's KENECHIUNA.com. So my first name, and then the first three letters of my last name, KenechiUNA.com. Yeah, I do a really bad job of keeping this updated, but if you go to the projects tab, it has the projects that I've completed and am working on currently. So the most recent one, so that May 30th, 2021 is, a collage of things that I did at the George Floyd protests. So that was like a commissioned piece by the city of Madison, just a bunch of prints of photos and collage, and I guess it's on the website.
Yeah. So you were commissioned by the city of Madison to complete this?
That's correct.
Oh, well, that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's a very interesting opportunity for sure. So that was, and again, that relates to the whole 2020 documenting thing here in Madison. And then my current ongoing project is the next one called Film Cipher, which again, I breakdance. So it's ongoing, and the goal is to capture the underground b-boy culture on film. So here's just a sample of the images. It's more heavily updated on Instagram, but it's kind of taking a different aspect of like the breakdance culture. You know, again, you know, I feel like a lot of, you know, people who take photos of it, you know, are taking pictures of like the actual dancing, the actual action and things like that. But, you know, these are just like, you know, portraits, you know, kind of evocative of like, I think like artists like, you know, Jamel Shabazz, Martha Cooper, things like that. And just like showing, like, you know, I feel like for a lot of people who aren't in the scene, like, you know, when they think breakdancing, they think, you know, what it was in the 80s, like gold chains, track suits, you know, Kangol hats, which, you know, they're still around. But me and the person that I'm doing this with are trying to just document what the current breakdance scene is like today and what the characters look like. So that's ongoing. Kind of tough right now because there's not a lot of events going on because, you know, hashtag 2020. But you know, we're gonna get back onto it when events start up again.
So is breakdancing, I've never breakdanced before. I don't know how to do it. I'm not much of a dancer of any sort. Is it there's a lot of physicality to it. Could you easily injure yourself doing breakdancing?
Yes. The short answer, yes.
I'd like, I guess tell me more about the physicality of it, and I guess what you do, and like how you prepare to you know, do a dance.
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, definitely like for what I do, you know, I try to do a little bit of everything. You know, obviously, like, you know, there's certain things you're going to be good at, bad at. You know, again, I think at the end of the day, it's still a dance, and you know, what's important is like, you know, being on the music, on beat, things like that. But in terms of what you can do to prevent like, you know, injuries, things like that, you know, just making sure like any, like, I hesitate to say that it's a sport because, you know, there's whole debates on that, but you do have to kind of like treat your body like an athlete would, like, you know, so that's rest, recovery, stretching, you know, proper care, eating properly, things like that. So I'm pretty bad about, you know, a lot of those things, but I try at times.
Yeah. I mean, that's just a whole other aspect that I think a lot of people wouldn't take into consideration. They just see the end product when, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And so I imagine you do a lot of stretching beforehand, correct?
Yeah, I try. I'm still young, so I can kind of get away with like not stretching as much as I should.
So, and how did you learn? Did you just like get in the scene and learn from other people who were already doing it?
So my college had a club, so I, you know, it was something that I actually saw like some people in high school doing it, so I was like, oh hey, like that's something I kind of want to do. And then I got to college, they had a club there, so then I learned from the people in the club, and then who went to school there, and then they also had people who didn't go to school but lived in the state, you know, just come practice, and you know, they also taught me things like that. So it's just like really like taking a little bit from everywhere, you know, whether it's like people at the school, outside of the school, or even just like YouTube tutorials. And then of course, like I think the biggest learning thing is actually going to the events and immersing yourself in the culture. That's really how you learn, whether it's workshops or just losing competitions, and then maybe that's how you learn the most.
And so would you say that when you're dancing, is it pre-planned, like you choreograph a dance, or is it improvisational?
Definitely improvisational for the most part. There's can be like, you know, pieces that like, you know, you kind of know how you do, so you kind of like a little mini set. But for me, I like to go improvisational freestyle like the whole time.
That's really cool.
Yeah. It's funny because like most people either know me like as a dancer or as a photographer, so you know, or sometimes both. So it's a very interesting like dual life almost.
Yeah. I have to say, I mean, well, I guess as a you know, I feel as though, you know, the photographers I know, they definitely have like different compartments of their of life that they document, and you seem to as well. And it's just interesting the varying aspects of life that I guess a lot of photographers find to document. And so, but I really appreciate the documentation of the year 2020, because we need that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, yeah, is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
No, I mean, I think, you know, my website, KenechiUNA.com. I'm on Instagram at KENECHI.UNA. You know, follow me, you know, on all platforms. I, you know, try to update it. And again, you know, just what I'm trying to do is just document things that are important, that are going on, that people might not know about, and like get people, you know, interested and engaged in things that they might not normally be interested or engaged in.
I think that's a admirable goal to have too. I'd like to thank you for joining us today. You can see Kenechi's artwork again at arthustle.net in the virtual gallery. And if you are interested in purchasing his work, you can reach out to our email, arthustlenewjersey@gmail.com, and I will put you in direct contact with him. So I'd like to thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Kenechi.
Thank you.